Hello everybody, I'm not sure if everybody's here yet, so Pottery Club doesn't start for another minute, so I'm going to hold on. Just going to put the camera on what you're going to be making today, so you can have a look, and then we'll start at 4 o'clock. Hi, so let me just get the camera. Hi, I'm Julie Massey, and I'm going to be doing your pottery sessions. So I'm a ceramics teacher, and this is some of my work above here actually. So I'm going to be guiding you through 3 projects over 6 weeks, and it's going to be a week of making, a week of glazing, and then another week of making, another week of glazing, and then the final week, another week of making, and another week of glazing. So we are going to make an emoji. So this is basically a ball of clay, and it's hollow. Okay, now to stop this blowing up in the kiln, because it's got an air hole in it, and it's really important that the air can get out of the clay, because if it's trapped in here, it expands when it's heated to over 1,000 degrees centigrade in the kiln, and it will force its way out. So you've got to remember to put this hole in. And the other thing you need to remember to do is put your name, so I've got JM on here for Julie Massey, put your name underneath. Okay, so we're going to make these emojis. Now if you've got a phone handy, you could look at the emojis on the phone, but I've got some emojis here. Okay, so the colours that you pick are really important, because in your glaze pack you're going to get the sort of colours that are appear on the emojis. So this emoji has got yellow underglaze, black, white, and I've noticed some emojis have some blue for halos and teardrops, and some red for love hearts. Okay, and I think that covers all the colours. So if you've got your glaze pack handy, it's in a box, and it's in a plastic bag like this, and all the tools you need are things you can collect around your home. So I've got a tea towel here, and I've got a plastic knife and fork, and I've got a tiny bit of water. Now you don't really need a lot of water, because it does end up being a very sloppy mess if you put too much water on. Okay, now you've got a lump of clay, and fortunately I've got 2 lumps of clay. So the first thing you need to do is cut your clay in half. Now you can do this with a plastic knife. You could twist it and pull it apart, but you need 2 even lumps of clay. Now one of my lumps is slightly bigger than the other, so I'm going to take some off the bigger one. I'm going to put that to one side, because I need to make some features, like I need to make the teeth if I was making this emoji. So you've got 2 lumps of clay, and the first thing I want you to do is squish it all together, because you need to get rid of all those horrible air pockets, because they're the bits you don't want left in your clay, because remember, the air expands when it's heated and it causes your work to crack, bits blow off, and you want to avoid that altogether. So you can spend a bit of time pressing it down like this, and this process is actually called wedging. So once you've done that to one, you can leave it to one side, and then you need to do it to the other one. You can spend a bit more time than me if you're doing this after the live session. Now, you do have to be careful that your clay doesn't dry out too much. It's warm now because it's coming into the summer months, and what I would avoid doing is putting your water on your clay if you think it's dried out too much. Try and avoid that altogether, because you'll only wet the outside, and it will be all gloopy and horrible on the outside, and it will still be dry in the middle. So try and work with it while it's in the state it's come out of the bag. Now, if you're doing this over a period of time and you need a break, put everything back in your bag and make sure no air can get in, and then when you've come to do it again, get it out. Okay, so we are going to achieve this emoji by making 2 thumb pots. So very basic traditional technique, and you need your thumbs and you need to press down, and you need to make sure the walls of your thumb pot are just under a centimetre thick. Now, I'm used to doing this, so it's quite easy for me, but I know some people find this a bit tricky and they end up making more of a plate. So here are some tips to help you make it successfully. Okay, every now and again stop and pinch your pot like this to feel the thickness, and it's about that thick. Okay, it might be that it's thicker in certain places, it's that thick at the bottom, so I know I need to pinch that area a little bit more. Now, if you end up making more of a plate, it's splayed out, then get your pot and just squeeze it together slightly to get it back into a pot shape. Now there, it's gone really thin, and that's too thin, because if it's too thin it's fragile, especially when it's drying out, and want to avoid that. Now there, I've got a split, so I'm going to push that together and put it back together. Okay, so now my thumb pot is a bit lumpy, so one thing I can do is rest it on one hand and tap it with the other to get a more even shape, and it helps smooth out the surface. Now what I'm doing here is just using my thumb and trying to make the surface a little bit smoother. Now, I haven't used any water yet, and I haven't used any tools yet, because my hands are the best tools I've actually got. Now, if you want more of a even top, turn it upside down and give it a tap, and then just go around and squeeze it. Now it's very thin there, so I'm just going to squash it together, smooth it on the inside, smooth it on the outside, and bring that back in. And keep tapping it. Okay, it's torn there, so I'm going to overlap it. I'm going to smooth it on the inside, and I'm going to smooth it on the outside. Now that one's done for the moment. I'm going to put that to one side. I'm going to repeat the thumb pop method or pinch pop method again and do exactly the same. Okay, so squeezing and pinching, rotating the clay in my hand to get the shape I want. Tapping on the outside. And I'm measuring the thickness with my fingers. It's about that thick there, and it's really thick at the bottom. It's about that thick there, so I know I can pinch a little bit more. I can keep going. Right, so I think that's more or less enough. And what I've got now are 2 pots. But what I really want is a sphere, a hollow sphere of clay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these together. Now, to join, I've got a plastic knife here, and it's not sharp at all. Okay, so I can't cut myself on it. I'm going to roughen up the edges all the way around, because I'm going to make, I want to make the clay so it grips. So do lots of sort of crisscross marks, roughen it up so it looks like that, and repeat it on the other half. Okay, so those 2 should grip together. Now, I am now going to use a little bit of water, because it makes it a little bit sloppy, like slip. Instead of making a slip, the water goes directly onto the clay here and makes it a bit gooey. That's on that one. And then the same on here. Okay, so it can go away. Right, so I'm just going to make sure they're going to join, and I'm going to think about low bits meeting high bits when they join, so they slot together. So once you've got it in place, you then want to join the clay, and you've got to be quite gentle here, because you don't want your 2 pots and your sphere to collapse in on themselves, and you want to get all the air trapped in the clay for the moment until you put that air hole in, because this sphere and the trapped air is going to support the shape. Okay, so don't worry that it's a bit rough and it's not perfectly round at the moment. You just want to make sure you have no gaps and no air is getting out, because you've basically made a big bubble. Okay, now what you want to do now is gently tap it, and then have a little smooth. You can use your homemade tools, or tools that you've collected from around your house, for a little bit of smoothing, but I prefer mainly to use my hands. Tap with the flat of your hands, and then smooth again until everything comes together. get a sphere, you do need to constantly rotate this ball of clay. If you just tap on one side, you will end up with an irregular shape. And smooth again. Don't use any water yet. Don't be tempted to think, oh, I'm going to get some water on this and smooth it down, because it will just be a horrible sloppy mess and your hands will be absolutely covered in clay. Keep going. To get it perfectly round, you do need to spend rather a lot of time on this. You could try rolling it gently. You've got to keep putting it down and thinking, where do I need to make it smoother? Where isn't it round? You roll it on one side, roll it on the other sides. Got a few lumps and bumps I need to keep smoothing out, and you'll notice it's gradually getting smoother and smoother. So we've got some lumps round here, so I'm going to move that clay around to try and get rid of that. Right, now I am quickly just going to go and get a sponge from my kitchen sink, because we are going to use a little bit of water now. So back in a few seconds. Right, so just a kitchen sponge. It's got some clay on it already. Okay, so you can now, I haven't dipped it in the water I've got here. I've just used the moisture that's on the sponge. So you want it just very slightly damp, and you can now use the sponge to make a nice smooth surface. And then you can go over with your fingers again. Now my sponge has got a rough bit on the other side, so that's quite good, using in a circular motion to help spread the clay a little bit. And then back to using my fingers. Right, you, if you want to, can spend absolutely ages getting your sphere perfect, but I'm going to move on now, because otherwise I could probably do that for ages, which isn't very interesting to watch. I'm going to make it into an emoji. Now I've got my emojis here, so I'm going to do something different to this one, and you can have a look and you can decide which expression it is. So I think I'll do that one. So I'm just going to draw on where I want everything to go, and I'll turn it around and show you. Just using my plastic fork here. If you make a mistake, you can rub it out like that. Okay, so it's going to be this one. And I need to, it's going to have a tongue hanging out of it. So I need to spend a bit of time making these marks more accurate. I'm not using your tools that you've got. I'm going to gouge a little bit of clay and then take it off the fork to try and get that squinted eye look, and smooth it down, and then I might need to do it again. And on the other side. Take that little bit of clay out, put that to one side. And keep going back in. You've got to be patient with your pottery. You can't expect it to all come together first attempt. And I'm going to leave it like that for the moment, and then I'm going to move on to the mouth. And I am going to take some clay out. Don't go too deep, because you'll pop your sphere of clay. Just want to create the impression that the mouth is open. So I just want to take a little bit away, and I want to keep some nice smooth edges to that grin. Let's go over with my damp sponge, and I need to spend some time on that edge. Right, so I'm going to stop there. I would be happy spending a lot more time on this, but I want to move on, because otherwise you guys are going to get a little bit bored watching me do that. All this clay here, I'm just going to pick up and squash it back into that clay. Now, my emoji has got a tongue hanging out, so I'm going to break some clay off, and I'm going to have a tongue hanging out of here. So I don't need a rolling pin, I just need to flatten it. Now I can go a little bit thinner than normal because the clay is sitting on clay, and I need to make it tongue shaped. So just going to smooth it, and I think I can go a bit flatter. Tap the edge to make it a regular shape, and then I've got to think about how it's going to fit in. So the tongue is probably too long, so I'm going to cut some off, and the tongue is going to sit like that, coming out. Now I need to make it look like it's coming out of the mouth, so I'm going to make that bit thinner. Got my dog down here, he's just arrived under the table, and I'm going to have that on there like that. Okay, now when I put that on, actually I'm going to make it slightly shorter. When I put that on there like that, it does, it's sticking, but the clay is wet at the moment and the clay dries out, and it has to be 100% dry to go in the kiln. So I've got to make sure I join it properly. So underneath here, let's use the fork, I need to do that mark making again, where I make lots of crisscrosses, mush up the clay a bit, and on the back of here I need to do that as well. I need to get some of my water, put it on there and make that gooey. Okay, and then I'm going to pop the tongue on here. And press it down with my knife. I want to keep that line above it really sharp, so it gives the impression the tongue is coming out of the mouth. And I've got to make sure that is thoroughly joined. So underneath here, where nobody can see, I'm going to do some joining as well to make sure it's really secure. And underneath this bit I'm going to do some joining, but try and create the impression that it's not joined at all, because I'm going to keep that tongue edge nice and sharp, and do that on the other side. Okay, so it's got a little bit messed up, so I'm going to use my sponge, smooth it down. I've got some bits on here that need to be smoothed down. I've lost some of the shape of the mouth, so I need to work back into that. And there's a little bit of a crack on the tongue appearing. Now you'll find as your clay dries out and becomes what's known as leather hard, that you can keep smoothing it down. Okay, I'm going to put a line on my tongue to make it look like a real tongue. smooth it down. Let's have a look. So I'm looking at him backwards all the time. So I've lost some features a little bit where I've been moving him around. So it's a case of constantly going back in and reworking those lines and shapes that you've been creating. Okay, I'm going to stop there for the moment. Now I'm going to show you the picture of the emoji I was trying to do. So I'm not quite sure which emotion it is. So it's this one here. So I need to work on that a little bit more as it dries out. And the last thing I'm going to do is put a hole in. Now you might want to use a sharp pencil to do that, but you need to make sure it goes all the way through like this one. And if you can put your name on your pottery as well, so the name that the pottery is booked in, so the student's name, and then I can make sure the right pottery gets back to the right person. Okay. I've got a little bit of clay left over, so I could perhaps use that for some more features if I wanted to. So when you've finished your emoji, what you need to do, and you've put your hole in it and you've put your name on it, is don't wrap it up in plastic. You've got a plastic bag, put it on your plastic bag and just pop it in your box because you want it to start drying out. It has to be 100% dry to go in the kiln. I've spoken about work exploding because you've got air trapped in it. Work can also explode because you've got moisture in it. So I make sure it's 100% dry before it goes in the kiln, but you can start that process by leaving it out of the plastic bag. So you need to pop it back in your box and you need to take it back into school by 9 o'clock on Friday morning. So take it into school with you on Friday morning and give it to your school office and say this is for the online Pottery Club collection, and I'll come and collect it, and then I'll finish drying it. I'll put it in the kiln, which is like a really hot oven that goes to over 1,000 degrees centigrade, and you're going to get it back and it will be orange. So anybody who did haycraft with me and has got their pottery back will know what their work is going to look like. This is a slightly different clay. This is white earthenware and this is red terracotta. Okay, so that's my dog barking at the front door. And then next Tuesday you will collect your pottery. I'll have fired it, and in your pack you'll have all the colours to create your emoji. So I'll include yellow, red, white and blue, and there'll also be some glaze. So you put your colours on and then you'll put the green glaze, and I'll be demonstrating that at the next online Pottery Club at 4 o'clock on Tuesday. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this. When this is finished, I'm going to post this on my website, so it'll be there for you to watch again. So you can work at your own leisure. Just make sure you've taken it back to your school on Friday. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Bye bye.